Okay, I'm very excited to have on the Goldstein on Gelt Show best-selling author Rory Vaden, best-selling author in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, USA Today. He wrote a fantastic book called Take the Stairs. Now, Rory, before this interview, I climbed a lot of stairs, so I might be a little bit out of breath. Why should people take the stairs?
Well, it's really simple. It's if you study successful people or wealthy people and you really understand the truth about their life, you will find that success with money, with our personal health or relationships, always comes down to doing the things we know we should be doing, even when we don't feel like doing them. In other words, success is not about taking the escalator. Success is about taking the stairs.
I got you. So that's sort of like saying you got to walk, you got to work. It doesn't just come magically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more than hard work, though. I mean, there's plenty of people who work hard and don't get great results, right? But what it is about doing is doing the things you know you should be doing, even when you don't feel like doing them, and that's the metaphor kind of take the stairs. So it's this idea of saying I am willing to do the things that other people maybe aren't willing to do, so that later I can have what other people won't have.
Got it. You sound like Dave Ramsey. He often quotes that, and I guess you guys are from the same state too, huh?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, so I know Dave, and he says if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. So it's kind of the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the way you phrase it and the way you explain it. But the problem is what you're describing is self-discipline, and people actually have to be able to have self-discipline. Some people seem to have it and some people don't. Is that something you feel people could in fact learn?
Well, everybody has self-discipline, and the people who think they don't have self-discipline, the part that they don't typically understand is we all have discipline. It's just that discipline becomes dormant in the absence of a dream. And so the paradox principle of sacrifice, which is the first of the 7 strategies in Take the Stairs, says that easy short-term choices lead to difficult long-term circumstances. Meanwhile, difficult short-term choices lead to easy long-term consequences. So this great paradox here is what seems like the easy way in life: eating whatever we want, saying whatever we want, buying whatever we want, even if we can't afford it. Those things that seem easy are actually the vehicles to the more difficult life. And inversely, the things that seem hard, right? Working out when we don't feel like it, eating certain foods, saving or investing money, instead of spending it. Those things seem hard, but actually those are the vehicles to the easier life. And it's this paradox that only a few people understand. So Take the Stairs is not about making your life as hard as possible. It's the exact opposite. It's about making your life as easy as possible. But it's predicated upon the notion that only a few people really understand, which is that the shortest, most guaranteed path to the easier life is to do the hardest parts of things as soon as possible. So the most disciplined people in the world, they don't like discipline any more than the rest of us. What it is that they think differently about it. Their brain processes choices based upon that long-term perspective, when most people only evaluate based on the short term.
This sounds very much like the Brian Tracy idea of eat that frog, which I actually think he got from Mark Twain, which is when you start your day, if you eat a frog in the morning, everything else is going to be easier in comparison. And I want to go back to this issue about how people can develop the ability to do that, because you're describing exactly the opposite of what society seems to be pushing today, which is instant gratification, and right. You're saying, take it easy and do the opposite.
Yeah, well, and people mistake discipline as being slower. They mistake it as being the slow route, and it's not slower. It's faster. It might be slower at first, but it's like instead of just walking across the country, you're taking the time to build a car, and then you'll get in the car, and then you will catch up and surpass everybody very quickly. So there's nothing slow about it when you think longer term, but it is something you have to develop. And I think another thing that people don't always understand is the connection between self-discipline and integrity. So The creation principle of integrity is one of the others of the 7 kind of core distinctions in the book, which is really all the book is. It's 7 misconceptions people have about self-discipline. But integrity, the creation principle, says you think it, you speak it, you act it, happens. All of creation, whether it's building a company, building a financial portfolio, building a table, building anything, it follows this process. You think it, you speak it, you act it, happens. And the way that you practice discipline is simply by practicing doing what you say you're going to do. And you build that muscle, you build that skill, just like somebody that's trying to build their arm muscle would do bicep curls. And it's as you develop that skill, you develop more confidence and more clarity and more power around the idea that I am a person who can do the things that I say I'm going to do. And it starts with the smallest commitments, the smallest agreements, the smallest secrets that you are, or things that you say you're going to do. You have to follow through on all of that. And as you do, you develop this courage and this confidence and this clarity that you can be disciplined. You can do anything you want once you say you're going to, because you have that skill, you have that strength of integrity. You think it, you speak it, you act, and then it always happens just as a byproduct.
We're talking with Rory Vaden, whose book you may have seen, Take the Stairs. It's certainly a top best-selling book. He's also the co-founder of Southwestern Consulting, which is a major international consulting firm which helps companies and people around the world to actually take control of their future. He's been talking to us about the importance of self-discipline. So rather than talking to the audience, Rory, I want you to talk to me, because my job in real life is that I'm a financial advisor. And a huge part of what I do is to coach people to try to make wise decisions about their money. And quite frankly, I'm often struggling with the people because they don't want to do the right things. I can tell them all day the importance of saving and investing and asset allocation. But, that's work. And give me a hand. What would you tell me as a coach so that I can help people to actually begin to make good decisions?
Well, it's not easy. It's not easy, right? It's a hard thing to create a culture of discipline. It's hard enough to get yourself to do the things you should do that you don't feel like doing. It's a whole nother level to be what we call a take the stairs leader. And getting other people to do it. So there are a couple things that you can do. The first one is to just always be talking about the long term. Teach people the value of the long term. Show them empirically what the results are of having a long-term perspective instead of a short-term perspective. So that's really huge. And the more you can be talking about the long term, demonstrating empirically the value of the long term, that helps. The other thing you can do is by leading by example. Okay, now with your clients, I don't know exactly how that plays out other than maybe you sharing some of your own personal investment strategy and your philosophies, which you are doing. But then the other thing is education, is just teaching them. Most of these concepts, like the paradox principle, once somebody understands it, and we understand it subconsciously, that doing the hard things now creates the easier life later on, but until it moves into your consciousness, then it's not a principle that you live and operate your life by. So that is what you have to be doing, is part of it is education. And so I think those would be the 3 best things, is demonstrate the value of the long term, model the value of the long term, and then educate people on the value of the long term. You have to teach them.
All right, so as we're coming to the end, let's see if we can give the listeners one takeaway in order that they could use in order to really get themselves on the right path. What would be the first step to developing this muscle?
Well, changing your perspective and realizing that this isn't a short-term diet plan. This isn't a 90-day fix or a program that you're going through. You have to embrace something we call the rent axiom. And the rent axiom says that success is never owned. Success is only rented, and the rent is due every day.
Every day. Right. I've heard you say that. I think that's a great point. Rory, I think it's very not only smart what you're saying, but the way you say it is really something that touches the heart of a lot of people. So certainly it's important for people who want to be successful that they have to get this concept of self-discipline by taking the stairs and building up many other habits that will help them to build it. So in the last few seconds, Rory, just tell us, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Yeah, I would encourage you to go to roryvadenblog.com and you'll get free accountability 3 times a week. You can sign up in the top right-hand corner, and 3 times a week, I will be emailing you insights and inspiration. It's all free. There's loads of articles on there and inspiring stories. So just go over to roryvadenblog.com and subscribe, and we will stay in touch.
All right. Rory, thanks so much for your time. We will put links to that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. All the best.
Thanks, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.